My name is Kenneth Bell. I'm the CEO of SCP Corp. I got into mining crypto at the beginning of 2017. I stumbled into Sia because it was paired up with Ethereum and dual mining. Then I ultimately kind of just zeroed in on that because it was the only thing in crypto that made any sense to me. The storage stuff really rang with me, and that made a lot of sense. And Sia really made a lot of sense to me. By 2018, it's really clear to me that the guys that were running Sia didn't really have any kind of a product background. A few of us were hanging out in the trading channels. And ultimately, we just always got into this mode of sort of critiquing what was going on in that project. And then that led to the situation that arose in late 2018, where we had the ability to sort of take and run our own direction. What we did is we essentially forked the blockchain, but we didn't actually, fork from the block height. We started over with Genesis. We, kept all of the original renter host protocol, started the whole software thing over, and we moved it forward. And that was ScPrime. We didn't have any funding. We didn't have any real idea. And all of the early part of 2019 was just us kind of getting our feet wet as founders. And we started working on a white paper, and it was going to take, a good solid year for us to find our feet. So you can look at 2019 as being sort of a non-year for us. By late 2019, we had written the white paper. We were in pretty good shape, and we had got to a place where we had designed and developed this concept of a relayer. We knew we needed to do an S3-based compatible cloud storage, and that we were going to focus on building products that we could sell to people. The other thing that we did was we founded a corporation. This happened we had an LLC at the beginning, by the way, but then we founded a corporation in 2019. This was SCP Corp. It's a Colorado corporation. The reason why we founded in Colorado, partly because I'm here and I was born here and live here, but also because our governor was really forward thinking and ultimately decided to follow the lead of Wyoming, who passed safe harbor laws for utility clients and for crypto in general. And so it sets us up really well. And I think I'm going to talk a little bit more about regulatory. So what I'm going to show you right now is this chart that I show from time to time. And if you look at this, you can go back to the very beginning here, and you can see that we start off with a pre-mine of about 10 million coins. And that was essentially so we could reward the community over at Sia and essentially drag them along with us. And, the idea was we would give them some coins. Well, the original notion typically on an airdrop is sometimes you do like a 1-to-1. Well, if there were 52 million or 42 million Sia coins, then you'd give them 42 million SCP. But that would mean we would have had to have made our supply something like, 80 million or 90 million or whatever, so that we, could essentially give them the whole thing, and then they'd have half the supply. It just really didn't make any sense. What we did is we did a 1 for 5. We gave them 1 SCP for every 5 Sia coins. We also had some money in there for mining pools. We had some money in there for some exchange listings. We gave away a lot of like 3 to 4 million to that airdrop, but then we realized the lion's share, or a lot of those coins, were actually living on Binance and Bittrex and Poloniex and the other big exchanges. So we talked to those people and we asked them, look, would you list our coin? Nope. Would you give out the airdrop? Nope. So we ended up having a big wallet of about 4.5 million coins, and then another one worth about 1.5 million. Those wallets have mostly been used now. We're working our way through the last chunk of those, and they've been used totally in network development, i.e., the money's all gone to you guys. Okay, so that's the story. All of that stuff is open source, right? All of that base blockchain layer stuff is open source, and it is a utility coin, as I said. This is going to become really important over the next several years, because all of the stuff that we built out on top of this, utility coin platform is really going to be pretty relevant and powerful, and we're going to be able to stand up and say, look, real use case. But at the heart, underneath it, in the way we rolled out the coin where anybody could mine it, everybody showed up on the first day. After 5 years or 4.5 years, we are now at this place where if we just scroll back just a little bit here, we can see 323. About 53 million coins have already been mined. But if you flash forward, you can see now from here to about a year out, we can see it goes to about 55 million. And like I said, we're at 53 million right now. That means there's only 2 million coins left to be mined in the next 12 months. And then after that, it gets even a lot lower. Let's jump forward. So what we did on top of that is we started to build what's called the state channel contracting layer, whatever you want to call it. It's an application layer that runs on top of this thing. This is the whole storage network that we use. And on top of that, what we did is we went out immediately and put together our own device to hold that storage. And that's the Examiner. And the Examiner has been the key to the project to date. And if you looked at that and just kind of said, well, geez, this is what my Examiner is, you'd be really displeased right now, a little bit disgusted, because you'd say, look, this just isn't working and I'm never going to make any money or ROI. But that's not where you're going to make all your money in this first year. And we've said that repeatedly. In the first year, you got a big bonus, right? You got some other things along your lines of the rebates that came through to bring the cost down to pretty close to cost on the hardware and software underlying the devices. And then most importantly, and none of those, by the way, are in the UI. You have to go to the Contract Explorer. They don't get highlighted or identified as any of that stuff. Yes, the rebates do show up, so that's nice. But then the other piece is this incentive layer that we put in there. We started very early on by saying we were going to put incentives on top of the marketplace model. And in that incentives layer, what we do is we actually pay for specific performance attributes. In case of the last year, it's all been about it. Here's the Examiner interface that we currently have. So with the Examiner, the way we currently have it right now, this is the financials page. And it's kind of interesting because on the financials page, we've got other things. We've got that summary down there. We've got all those other things. So one of the things that's going to happen is now that we've done this unified release of the relayer, we're going to be coming back and we're going to be doing the same thing for the Examiner. The Examiner is going to get a big facelift coming up over the next several weeks, couple of months. And essentially, we will start to get all of this stuff, the unified financial accounting, so that you can see exactly what you've earned and know very clearly. Let's take a look here, Henry, on the stats page so we can show them where that actually lives. All you can actually see here right now are your last month incentives, and you can see that they're buried down here in the middle lower left-hand side of the page. And then you can see the current month incentives being earned. The problem with that is you don't know what you earned 2 months ago or 3 months ago or 5 months ago and so forth. And so you don't have a total unless you're actually tabulating them up yourself. So we have that data already gathered together, and we will soon be putting it all together so you have a very clean look at everything you've earned over the last year, 2 years, whatever it's been since we started doing incentives and driving that revenue in there. And then I've got to cover a really quick thing here before I move on and kind of get past this. So the notion here is people are emailing and saying, well, look, I don't know if there's anything to celebrate. You know, I've only made a grand total of about $8 a month. Well, they're calculating right now based on the coin price. If you remember, the coin price got a lot higher. And when a lot of these incentives were earned, or when the rebates were earned, or when whatever were earned, the coin price was much higher. And yes, it was trending down. And yes, nobody knew it was going to go where it went. But ultimately, if you had sold all your incentives and your storage rent and your whatever back when you had gotten it, you would have earned quite a bit more than what you currently look at and say, I've earned. That's just how it works. And you're going to have to kind of reconcile yourself with that based on where we are. If you did sell all your coins along the way, you probably can feel better about how much you've earned on your miner in the first month, but it was probably a mistake, because you really want to hold your coins into that next wave that's coming. And that means you're really probably going to have to commit to holding them for at least 2 years. But if you do hold them to that, you're probably going to feel pretty good. I can't guarantee that, and I'm certainly not going to try. I don't care what the coin price is personally, because it doesn't affect the project. What's happening right now with Examiner is not only that thing with the UX and the UI, we're going to be designing new models. And so I put those into the roadmap. We'll talk briefly about them, but what's coming right now that I can tell you very clearly are 3 models: Flagship, which is this model you're currently looking at; Examiner Extreme, which is something interesting on the roadmap; and Examiner High Density. I'll just tell you right now that Examiner Extreme is this model that's coming out that ultimately will have NVMe storage along with platter-based storage, and it will have a lot of processing horsepower behind it because it's anticipating what happens after we really do start to succeed in the market with storage, which is compute. But we know we need to design and develop around it today and start seeding a network, just like we built the network we have right now back at the beginning of 2022 so we could go out now and start selling it like crazy. We need to start developing the compute network as well so that we can go out and start selling it like crazy. If you've been thinking about, well, what's next, the Examiner Extreme will be that thing. The Examiner high density model is something else. This is going to be primarily for data center type customers. The next thing is third party manufacturers. We killed the basic license. Basic license doesn't exist anymore. It's grandfathered in. We got about 1,000 of you here, and hopefully we will convince you that the full license is really the only way to go, and we'll get you up to that kind of level. But if not, fine, you can stay around for as long as you want to be here. But the whole notion here is we're going to design a second tier of licenses that will fit in between it, almost be at that same pricing level as what the standard license was in the very beginning. And the standard license was a pared back version. And in this case, this is going to be for third-party manufacturers. We have a discussion going on right now, and I don't know if it'll turn into anything or not, but it was a very productive discussion, and I think it will. COTX is out there designing this flexi mining thing. And with COTX, let me just see if I can bring that up on the screen. What they've done is they've brought this little device to the table that doesn't really have a very big footprint, and it can cover multiple miners all on a single unit. And he's already selling these units with our miners on. It's the basic license, so we have to work with him to figure out how that's going to work on this new full license. But at the end of the day, this already exists. You can already buy this with ScPrime running on it. I don't know how much it costs and so forth, but we're talking with him about developing additional models along these lines. But that's the story right there, is that this device and other third-party manufacturers will have that middle sort of layer version, while everybody else that wants to buy software will end up buying the full version totally, or they'll buy one of these devices. We think these kinds of devices will help us to grow really wildly in places like Asia, Africa, South America, and so forth. So we're really focused on that. The problem with this device, of course, is that you have to put a storage, device behind it. It doesn't have any storage on it. So at the end of the day, you're still going to pay almost the same amount of money as what you're going to pay for an Examiner. But at the same time, the footprint can be a little bit different than an Examiner. I do want to talk a little bit about one other thing, collateral program. We talked about collateral on your units. What I'm just going to tell you right now is you're going to want to start putting more and more collateral on your devices. And I just need to tell you, we're already set it up so that, you're going to need to have 1.5x in order to match sort of what we're doing. But you may not be collateralizing your full storage. I'm just going to tell you right now, you should start, because there's going to be a backfill. In other words, we will have an incentive that will look backwards. And so if you have the ability to put more collateral on those devices, doesn't hurt you. It's a savings account. It's a piggy bank. There will be incentive models developed directly around having more of your storage collateralized. So if you have these big models, 64 terabytes, yeah, it's going to cost a bit to put a lot of collateral on there, but you need to get out there and do it. All right. So the next thing I want to show you. So the web wallets turned out really cool. Ultimately, this wallet was created by another developer who's been associated with the project, and he's kind of turned it over to us, and now we're kind of working it through. Henrik Singler on the stage right now is a developer from Lithuania who's working on this specifically. And ultimately, if you have features, requests, or things that you'd like to see in this wallet, post them in the channel that we have built for the web wallet, and we will ultimately parse through them and add them as they're in there. The thing I love about this wallet is you can add these notes, and on the workstation that the wallet lives on, these notes will live on that workstation with you. I need to get a feature in there so that I can export those notes. I think it probably does right now, but I haven't really actually validated that. But I need to be able to then import those notes into another web wallet on another machine or another web wallet in general. So this wallet is really our primary wallet, even though the CLI, the basic CLI that runs under every instance of our systems, will actually allow you to do wallet ops. This is the main project wallet. There's some pretty cool features in here. You have the ability to see all the transactions. If you click on a transaction, it opens up the Explorer. The Explorer currently is a third-party product that's being developed. We've been with this individual, 420 Coop, has been with us since the beginning, actually since the early SIA days. He's kept it up to date really well, and it does work very well. There's underlying problems with the Explorer, but those are problems with the blockchain, not with his actual implementation and so forth. So that's pretty cool. And then, these other features, the thing that I use a lot is multi-send coins, which allows me to send all of the incentives in just a couple of transactions, where I can send, 600 at a time, which are really, really cool. So this thing's really turned into a pretty nice little device, but we're really interested in what your feedback is on it and what kind of features you'd like to see it. We're probably not going to wrap any hosting or any of that sort of stuff into it, because that's not really what this is built for. This is primarily a transactional wallet. What we are going to do is roll this into the Examiner UX. So this will be our unified wallet across the entire platform space. When we release the unified Examiner, this will be in there. Last thing I want to talk about really briefly here is the social media for the ScPrime stuff. ScPrime Cloud is our Twitter. Definitely you want to get signed up for that. ScPrime Cloud is our Facebook. You definitely want to get signed up for that. We also have an ScPrime Cloud user group on Facebook where a lot of people hang out. It is a permission thing. You have to ask to join, but it's a place where there's quite a bit of ongoing discussion. And Gord is the team member who tends to take care of that. And so he's here on the stage. Now we're going to do something a little different. We're actually going to invite some more people up to the stage. I'll stop my screen share. I'm going to turn it over to Shardy. Used to be Chum. Actual real life name is Stephen Andrews, for the SCP rig competition. So go ahead, take it over.
See here. Yeah, so this is from the outreach channel. This is like a community driven operation just to kind of get people engaged, sharing some stuff on Twitter, sharing their setups. So we had quite a few entries, a little bit more than I was expecting. But yeah, we're just going to run through them real quick and kind of take a look at some of the entries. I didn't get everyone in here, so if you're not in the presentation, don't feel left out or anything. It was just, I think we had 100-something entries, and I don't think we have time to go through everything. So, yeah, first up we have Sanhi here. She's running Examiner. We've got Disk Array down below. Nice little setup.
I love the Lions get all the extra love there for sure.
Yeah.
I'm glad. When this first happened, I was a little bit like, was anybody going to do this? Is anybody going to give us these pictures? And I love the things that people submitted.
What's funny is it actually caught most of the momentum towards the end. We had quite a few people in the last 3 or 4 days of the competition kind of start doing submittals at that point. This one freaked me out. I think this got to a lot of people. This is Jason B from our buddy from Australia, stacking them up high.
The crazy thing about that to me is that how are they? Gravity works the other way, doesn't it, in Australia?
He's a construction guy. Maybe he caulked them together. They might have some adhesive between them or something. Who knows?
Oh, so they don't float up to the ceiling.
Yeah. Yeah. This one right here, I thought was pretty cool. This guy's got. We've got this LED screen right here that actually shows his SPD version and shows how many contracts he has. That's a pretty cool little Synology setup. We got this one submitted today from John. This is a nice little rig too.
8,000 terabytes, he said, fit in that bottom one, right?
Jesus, yeah.
Oh.
Very own Duke. He has the identical setup to what I've got. He's got the 64 Exa and then the little DOS there. And this one This one we got some bonus points. I see some oat milk on display. I hope he didn't actually drink that, but
and minivan too.
And blue minivan in there.
How many hours of planning do you have to do to get to work off one oat milk? What's the math?
I'm not sure. I don't have a spreadsheet on that one yet.
All right, we'll get that together. If it might be pretty big, we can upload it. Oh, there we go. Some dust.
This one, I like that we have an air compressor nearby, so that way he can keep everything nice and dust free. This is from T Rotten. Little disco ball action here.
These things, it's just, everyone's got these dusty basements full of cool things stacked.
Yeah, that's what's cool about the Exa. It's so durable. It can kind of stand up in any environment, right?
Yeah, I mean, mine sits on top of the compressor beside the fridge, and the printer's dead, but the Exa keeps going.
Yeah, this is a beautiful setup right here. 6 Exas and then three DOSes with Mac Minis down below.
Whose is that? That's got to be Helium Streets, right?
No, yeah, this is Mike S actually. Mike S.
Okay. Yeah, I know that I went off on a little bit of that. Stick your Mac Minis on your things, and some people followed me, and that one's. Whoa, you're tripping me out with this. What's going on here?
This is our buddy Brad Viking. This is his setup. Yeah. He's got 3 Exas, and I think I heard he's got another on the way.
And that's in a closet at the state penitentiary, or that's at home?
Yeah, I think he's got it in a cell block somewhere. This is a pretty cool little setup. So this guy actually 3D printed these rails, and then it has some little sponges to reduce vibration. And looks like he's running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 8 discs off of just this one little NUC that he's got set up. So that's
like the milk crate Examiner.
Milk crate Examiner that you probably don't want to carry through an airport.
You want to find that in your trunk.
Yeah, and we got Ted Lee here with.
This is the best one.
This was probably
one. I voted for this one.
This was probably one of our favorites, honestly, because it just shows that you really can set up. You can set up these Exas and kind of just chunk them in the corner. They live, they do their thing, and yeah, definitely nothing glamorous here, Ted.
I heard that that Flux actually drove up to British Columbia to install those cables for him.
It looks like a Zach job for sure. It's like another cool one. We got a bunch of S11s here, all labeled out, and obviously the arcade setup is just sick. So
that's Mr. Iwana. I was trying to read that at first, and I thought it was like Marley Marl the Wino or something.
Yeah, it took me for a spin too.
I guess that makes me feel pretty. Yeah.
And what we got next? This one was one of my favorites. Big fan of Stoicism, so this is really cool. 3 Exas. Looks like he's got a Synology and then a little DOS over to the side. Very nice chase. And so this guy, this is one of the entries that came in kind of as a Hail Mary, right? This was, I think, 2 days before we closed entries, and Turtle Bomb came in and posted these photos of this little set that he made.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
this scares me. Is that an Apple keyboard for the driveway? Looks like it.
I mean, just the detail and the amount of effort that went into this is just awesome. Very cool turtle.
I love that he threw that shower curtain up to give it this suspension of disbelief. We were talking that he was missing a blue, either blue minivan or a Dodge Ram to make it even better. But there's blue, South Talmadge German Shepherd on defense.
So up next, that's all for the slide. Jeff, do you have the winners?
Oh, yeah, no.
No, I've got them right here. You're on mobile. I've got them in my slides here just in case. So what we did here, we have a first, second, third place. Third place, we've got Chase. We got Chase here with the Stoics.
Nice.
Second place, we've got Mr. I Want to Know.
So I want to know where you're going to spend your SPFs.
And then first place, Turtle Bomb. I mean, this you can't. This would have just been a really difficult one to top. So, congratulations, guys. Yeah.
If I was corporate America and I needed to store my data, I'd want it to be in a little house.
Yeah, definitely. And then whenever we were judging everything, we got together as a group, and there was a lot of us that liked this other setup. So we kind of put together a little side pot, and we're going to send a little bit of child support over here to Ted Lee. Hopefully, maybe we can get some kind of a shelving situation figured out here.
That's the Raw Dog Award right there.
So
how much do they win for all these, my friends? Don't tell us.
Let me see here. Let me pull up. Let me stop my screen share so y'all don't see anything weird on my computer. 1 second. But yeah, Ted. So Ted, he's going to be getting 500 SCP.
Nice.
And
don't tell it. You got to hold that stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to be keeping an eye on all these wallets for sure. So Turtle Bomb, you're going to be 3,600 SCP, 3,000 SPF. Mr. I Want to Know, that's 4,200 SCP, 2,000 SPF. And then Chase, you're at 2,500 SCP and 1,000 SPF. And those numbers could go up.
Money come from? Where did these coins come from?
That was all community donated, and I think Jeff was supposed to throw in some SPF on that. I don't know if we ever actually got that put in, but
hold on. Let's just double SPF for everybody. I'll give it like 3, 2, 1. That's 6. Right? Don't we get that 6?
Double the SPF. So that's going to be 6,000 for first, 4,000 for second, and 2,000 for third. You sure you can afford that?
Yeah, it's what I mean. I'm gonna give you 6,000 SPF and not 500 for Raw Dog too. Let's give this whole thing.
Right on. Hell yeah. Well, cool. Well, that's it. Thanks everybody for putting in the submissions. We'll probably do some more competitions and stuff coming down the line. But yeah, a lot of fun.
Good job to the team. Good job for everybody that built all this stuff and this Relay 2.0 that we haven't spoken about yet. Wow. And
100%.
And by the bottom, let's go. Because
cool. Well, I guess we'll pass it back over to Ken.
Yeah, Funkel's out.
Thank you to our two community outreach guys. They've been doing a hell of a job on the social media and so forth. Really, if you really want to help the project, if you really want to continue to drive interest and to get more storage and to do all the stuff, outreach is the place where you can really start to contribute. So they have a channel, join there, talk with them about ideas you have. It's a real great sort of community-led effort. I don't tend to get involved here a lot, but I'll contribute, do some things that we can do to help out when they need it. But I think it's just a wonderful thing, and great job, guys. What you're all really interested in is how is more data going to come onto the network? And we've really kind of given you this equation. It's up on a resource document that Henry wrote up on the SCP website, ScPrime website, where essentially it's how much can an examiner earn, or how much can a storage provider earn, or something along those lines. And the whole notion there is that it's not like helium. It's not like Flux. It's not like any of these other projects that are out there with passive income earned. But you know what? That's never been our thing. We've never showed up and said, look, you get guaranteed money for doing this thing. What we've said is we strive to award you $4 to $5 a terabyte stored on your devices. And then we've got to go out and actually bring on storage to make that happen. And if you didn't come in under that assumption, you rudely got awakened to understanding that is how it works. And what we're building is a true utility, real world network with a real product, which says that you bought this device counting on us to go out and sell storage. And the whole notion is that we know we can sell the storage because of this chart. This is the chart we show on every presentation about the project to investors, to new people coming in, to everything. And that's that global data creation is about to explode. And when we say about to explode, we're talking about years. We're not talking about in the next 30 days. So when the project started in 2018, there was 33 zettabytes out there of stored data in the cloud. And now we're in 2023, which is somewhere in between there, 47 and 175. And that's actually right. If you go out and look around on the internet, you'll find that we're somewhere in the middle of that, approaching 100 zettabytes. But you can see what happens. We're about to enter that parabolic. Now, it's 5-year windows, right? It's not going to happen overnight. But we're approaching 5 years on the project already. So the next 5 years is going to be the most fantastic 5 years of our existence. And in that 5 years, we're going to go from 175 to 612 conservatively, right? There are some people that think that this chart is wildly low because as data goes online, it begets more data. This is our new relayer UX. One of the things that we kind of determined in the relayer UX is that, in a lot of ways, most people probably are not going to be staring at this. They don't use the UX of the relayer. The whole idea of the relayer is once it's actually operational and running, it's really going to be under the water and it just kind of runs in the background and you really don't want to be paying attention to it. In fact, what will end up happening is if the relayer is, in your mind, or if it's on the top of your mind, or if it's causing you to pay attention to it, things are probably not working the way they're supposed to work. Well, what happened with the relayer when we first released it was we had a lot of different understandings about how to solve different kinds of platforms and so forth. We released, in fact, in the very early days, one of our developers and one of my co-founders, Jay, actually wrote a little VB application and we handed that out to some people to use. Meanwhile, the Linux side has been pretty much performant all the way along because Linux is set up to handle this kind of installation. But ultimately, we kind of wrestled and wrangled around with it until we finally got to a place where we were able to deliver what I think is a very, very, very strong unified release. James is our developer on this UX relayer side of the house, and ultimately has screwed together this Docker Compose configuration that works on both Linux and Windows, and it works fantastic now. In the Windows side of the house, this is what you'll see when you first set up a relayer. And the whole notion about a relayer is this. For people that are new to the project or don't really understand, what a relayer is. So when you rent storage on Backblaze or Wasabi or AWS or Microsoft or any of these services, you just get a URL and you just upload directly to their servers, okay? So you just hand all your data over to Jeff Bezos or to any of the people that run these companies and have these big data centers. So the idea here is on a distributed data center, on a distributed network, you've actually got to send the data somewhere first so that it can stop off and get encrypted, sharded out so that it then can be distributed to all the different nodes that you're going to be storing the data on, your examiners, right? And then ultimately, there's some other things in there that need to happen metadata-wise in terms of keeping track of the addresses of where everything lives so that multiple people can be uploading through this device at the same time, and then ultimately find those files very easily and very quickly. What ends up happening, though, is there's another thing that sits in the middle, and this is an S3 gateway. You never send your data to me. I never own your data. I never see your data. I never have the ability to do anything with your data, right? At the end of the day, you keep your data. The only thing I can do is I can shut off your contract with the distributed data center. And ultimately, it only will that happen is if we get some kind of a subpoena from a law enforcement agency and we look at it and it does look like you've been sharing illegal stuff, and ultimately there's some kind of a resolution where you get a warning or multiple warnings to ultimately bring it down. And if you ultimately don't move forward with that, then we will stop your contract. But I never do anything with your data. That's what the relayer does. That's why you have to run a relayer. And that's why it's a little different from running against AWS. And we've shown that you can run relayers on even very lightweight computers. Now, you definitely probably want to have 16 gigabytes of memory or 32 gigabytes or even more. But that's hardly anything in a server world these days. And for an IT admin to put a device together that does that, that's really not going to be anything. The other thing that happens is we settled very clearly and very early on saying it has to be S3 compatible. That's the only thing that the real world's going to accept. S3 is this RESTful API that's been developed by AWS on how to access buckets and files and objects online. Now, the other thing about the relayer that's really cool, and this is the part that we're going to be getting to very quickly, is this whole provider profile thing. All you guys, the distributed data center, right now, essentially what we have in this ability is to go in here and you can, make your own profile. So like I have one made called West America that looks a little bit like this. This is a very customized string for setting up specific providers. I can get even more granular than this if I want, but ultimately this is sort of a thing that I've built to get the western part of the Americas, the North America. So it's West Canada, it's West USA. Now, if you're somebody who's used S3 storage before, you recognize what this looks like. This looks like AWS regions, right? But the difference is that when I choose this, I'm just choosing a bank of providers that are in that region, that area. But the relayer is really smart. The relayer knows to go out and say, okay, I've got 500 and some providers in my group. In this case, it's 567 providers in my group, right? And then what happens then is that ultimately the relayer itself looks and says, all right, I'm just going to start uploading. And what happens is, as I start uploading, the fastest providers are going to get the most. If somebody's really fast in accepting my data, they're going to get more data from me. So ultimately, the people that are fast get more, the people that are slow get a little bit less, the people that are offline or, throw up blocks and say, look, I'm not actually available right now, congestion, whatever. And what happened is they fall off the list and they stop getting stuff uploaded to. I want to actually throw a shout out to another developer who's not here right now. Boris Nageyev was the first solid backend Go developer that I brought aboard. I went through all 140 developers who had put commits onto the SIA project, and I contacted them all. And ultimately, Boris was the one who really stood out. I was really fortunate that he came aboard. Boris came up with some good ideas and so forth, threw them out there, and some of those things have become the foundations underneath this relayer platform. But what Boris's biggest contribution to the project, really, and Pavel Dogov is Boris's brother, and Boris brought Pavel in. Pavel was a developer at Waves, and he, at the last project that he worked on at Waves, was actually converting that from proof of work to proof of stake. Pavel is the third co-founder that is currently with the project. As I said, the second is my friend Jay. What Pavel's done is actually taken this architecture that is made up of a couple of different modules, but the one that's of most import is called Host.io, and actually turned it into this just world-class piece of technology. We're going to do a little middle piece where we actually start shipping hardware relayers that are just based off the software as it currently is. The relayer can actually be turned into a device for people that are running cloud storage on premises, hybrid, in the cloud, and so forth. And some of those things have to do with extrapolating and abstracting the cache. Immutable cache is this deal of saying ransomware protection. And that's becoming a very big hot button for me. The other idea is to essentially send out priority cache to say the minute something gets uploaded into this specific channel, it gets uploaded to the network a lot faster. In other words, it gets priority over everything else that's in the cache. So the CEO needs to upload something and needs it to bypass engineering or whatever. Persistent cache, where people say, yes, I do want stuff to get uploaded to the network, but at the same time, I want it to stay in the cache so that it has very, very low latency and durability is served up by the stuff that's on the network. So that kind of thing will happen in this device. We'll put a network file system or multiple network file systems. So maybe NFS will live on this thing. A lot of this stuff can be done pretty quickly, by the way. So I look to have that device into the world over the next 1 to 2 quarters. The other thing that Jay has talked about is using some features that we currently have in the relayer as it stands, so that our partners, right, the people that are out there right now trying to sell this stuff, can actually do what's called multi-tenancy, right, or have the ability to take buckets themselves and permission them separately, so that essentially one customer can live on one part of the relayer while another customer lives on another part. So if a partner stands up a whole sort of data center with a bunch of relayers in it, they can maybe have 5 relayers servicing 20 customers. We wanted to know what our compatibility looked like, and we want to also understand how easy it is to set things up with the relayer as it currently exists, and how hard is it going to be for you guys, or customers who come aboard, to set it up. So we got a couple of people into a channel setting up different S3 applications, and there's over 50,000 of them out there right now. And they started setting them up with a relayer, and it's going swimmingly. These guys are setting them up like crazy. And so what they're doing is they're building, well, they've already done, here's the thing to show you, they've already done over 52, or they've done 52 different applications in setup, so that essentially they all fit this same sort of profile, where you're going to be able to grab a document that looks just like this. This one's for VM. This is a legitimate document. This one was prepared by ThickQ. Thank you in the community. Signify Winters, another guy who's been banging them out. Shardy's been banging them out. A couple of other people. If I missed you, I apologize. You can raise your hand and talk to the channel, and I'll mention you. But the whole notion is you're going to be able to grab this document and just run down and just do step by step. Oh, this is all I have to do to actually set up and run backup on VM. Now, most of you have seen this if you've gone in and actually messed around with licensing, if you've been in the console. But on the xns.tech website, we've seen this console and this map. You can actually go to it now on the ScPrime website. This is our live map. And the developer who's working on the console, he's actually done an awful lot of work on the Examiner as well. Cam Chadwell, Cam's done this whole work on this console in the XNS. Console is going to be a really important component of this project going forward. And so all of our identity and access management will live there. All of our ability to access various licensing tools, to access your relayer provisioning where you get your tokens, to access all of your relayer assets that you're ganging together, and then all of the partner information where we start to pull everybody together, so people like our partners can actually see and aggregate billing for their customers. It all lives in the console. We expect that as storage comes on the network, that will unleash a burst of mining sales, and the two will go in tandem. We think it's going to take us about 3 years to get to 300,000 nodes. But to get there, it's going to take a lot of storage on the network, and we won't allow more mining sales ultimately than what the network can actually support. So this is pretty cool, though, because you can go in and you can actually take a look at an individual Examiner. It'll pull up the Grafana for them. And ultimately, we can take a look at a miner that's somewhere up in the Chicago area. We can see a little bit about it. Can see how much they've earned in incentives, can see how much is used, how much they have. If I go back, it tells me a little bit about it. It's online. It is an Examiner. This is going to be tied in directly with this, where you'll be able to scroll in on this and choose manually, one by one, if you wanted to, individual providers that you want to store all your stuff on. Now, that's not always going to be how people will deal with it. Mostly they're going to be choosing countries, or they're going to be choosing specific regions. Like they might choose Euro West or Euro East or North, and you can see that the map is getting filled in as I click on them. Even though you may be choosing 100 or 140 or 120 providers to actually get any given segment of uploads, you actually need 300 or 400 or 500 in your set. It sets up one row and uploads it, but then it takes another row and then uploads that, and then it takes another row. And each one of these rows that's being uploaded is going to different provider sets or different provider groupings. So it's really a very, very robust and very durable and very performant setup of erasure coding that nobody else has. And this is this notion of customers as network development. We've got to get to 300,000 nodes. Our partners are out there right now trying to sell the storage, right? They're going to go out and pitch the storage, but there aren't that many nodes in a lot of places. So like if you were to take our network map right now and you were to scroll over to, let's say, Italy, and Italy's like France. There's just nobody there, which is really weird because you would think that we'd have a ton there. But right now, the node numbers in Italy are really sorely lacking. I think we can do a really good job there. All we have to do is put some keyword advertising, do some co-op with some people that are there. And ultimately, I think we can drive a lot of examiners into that part of the world, or those COTX miners, or miners from one of our partners that's there right now. Alessandro's in the room right now. He's Daniel Recker in the community, and he's actually building, he's a manufacturer building his own miners. We sell storage right now at a discount to what the retail price is, $7.99 if you come in off the street and decide to rent storage off of our website. But partners get a better price. And the partners get that better price because they have to compete with people like Wasabi or Backblaze or whatever. You're either on AWS and paying $25 a terabyte, or you're on one of these, other clouds that are trying to get in there, and you're down somewhere around $6 a terabyte. And then everybody's got the same thing, and it is what it is. Why would I choose you over Wasabi? Well, you choose us over Wasabi because we actually have providers that are closer to you. We can tell a customer that they can get in for half price. They're paying $6, we can get them in for $3. We know that ultimately they're going to need to put storage on over 100 providers, right? So we can tell them, look, you just need to have the ability to talk and put your storage on at least half that number of affiliated miners. You can buy 50 miners yourself and stand them up in your own facility. You can work with a partner, and the partner will stand up 50 miners. Or maybe you split it. You stand up 20 miners, and the partner stands up 30. Or the partner goes out and confederates and says, look, I got 5 customers. They all have 20 miners. All of them are under my flag. So if you put half your data on my miners, right, I'm going to give you $4 a terabyte. It's also possible for those customers to onboard enough mining assets in their organizations. They can hand up miners out to their employees. They can move them around all over in their location. They can put them in different multiple campuses. But how do I make even more? How do I get storage costs down to 0? Those miners that they stand up will fill up 50% with their data, but also will onboard and take in data from the rest of the network. So ultimately, what ends up happening is at year 2, year 3, year 4, and year 5, their miners are going to get filled up full, just like your miners are going to get filled up full. But they're going to turn around and be able to start earning money on the storage that they're storing for other customers. We send them SCP for their own storage that they're storing on their own devices. Then we turn around and use the rebate remit process. Remember, you've seen that now, where the SCP coins come back to our facility, and then they get turned into storage credits. So now going forward, instead of next month owing money on their storage, they've got a storage credit pool to draw from in the console that is dollar-based. And so ultimately, they never have to custody cryptocurrency. The rest of the world thinks crypto's a scam. So if we can show them how to do this all in dollars and give them the ability to set up hybrid clouds, that's what putting on-premise mining assets is all about, suddenly we have a winner. For this specific purpose of customers who need to pop a 4U in place that has, hundreds of terabytes of storage capacity, and they want to keep 50% of the, storage of their own stuff on internal hybrid type cloud. And that's what we're going to be doing with Examiner high density. And those should be essentially offered in the store over the next probably 4 to 6, maybe 8 weeks. Not all customers are going to run mining, but enough of them are to really drive this notion and to really get a bunch of storage rapidly onto the network. Because you start telling a CFO or a CEO, look, last year you paid, $80,000 a month to house your stuff on AWS. We're telling you that this year you can get that cost down as low as like $10,000 a month at the beginning. And then over time, as you start to put stuff onto your own devices, that number can start to trend to zero. And before long, we can turn it into an actual profit center in your company. We move forward with that. We've got a product coming up called XCare Premium, which will allow them to be able to get overnight replacement on drives and things like that. It becomes a no-brainer for them. I do want to just mention social media there. Twitter is XNS Cloud, and Facebook is also XNS Cloud. Those are two very lightly trafficked. I really encourage all of you people to go out and follow them. Even if you don't have an account right now, make an account to follow them. We need to start getting those accounts being used and socialized so that we can start getting higher up in the algorithm and so forth. I do want to cover one other individual here real quick. He's kind of covered both of these areas, the examiner side of the house and the relayer side of the house. Renat, and I'm not even going to bother trying to pronounce your last name because I'll screw it up, came aboard as a senior developer for us, I think in 2021, and has just taken the bull by the horns in several different areas, but primarily where he's been focused mostly for the last year and a half has been on this whole supervisor, super admin development. Essentially, supervisor and super admin are these tools which really keep the examiner network running and humming and solid. It allows us to do multiple updates over a short period of time, and you guys perceive nothing. You don't perceive anything except all of a sudden you wake up tomorrow and your device is updated. You didn't have any issues with the fork, right? The fork went off. You didn't care. Do I have to do anything? I have an examiner. No. If you got a rebate, you can pretty much thank Renault for that as well. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to sit in for somebody who's on an aircraft. He was hoping to be here, but he's not going to be here. Chancer, Ian, Lucifer, whatever you want to call him. He was a longtime SIA guy who was really sort of the escrow guy for SIA funds over on that project, which were the precursors to SPFs on our project. A lot of differences between those two tokens now. They almost bear no resemblance to each other. But the thing with the SPFs is the investors, of which Ian was one, ended up getting a fairly healthy amount of them as freebie bonuses when they bought shares of stock in the corporation. And so he went out there and made a couple of contests. The one that he made was this 2 petabyte contest. Nobody knew it was going to go the way it did. And by the way, we haven't hit 2 petabytes yet, by the way. Right? We're still at like 196 or something like that. So the deal here is what you're looking at is the guesses. And everybody guessed, late 2022, which was probably a pretty good guess. And, but none of those people won. A bunch of people did guess December of 2022, and then a few people guessed January of 2023. Some stragglers in February, few in March, and only one person guessed in April. So the closest guy right now is another person whose name I have to figure out how to say, but I'm just going to call him Taco Bell because that actually sounds better to me. It's not his real name. Everybody knows Taco. He's been a great supporter. He's a Pathfinder. He's been writing some third-party stuff to do things like keep track of incentive pricing and so forth. He guessed actually in April 1st, and so he's actually the winner of the 2 petabyte competition. And we did commit to doing the dilution thing when we did the hard fork. So there's going to be a few extras that are in there. So Takum walks away with that one. So I want to talk a little bit about the roadmap here and what we expect. I've already covered quite a few of these items on the roadmap, so this isn't going to take all that long. This refactored blockchain import is kind of a done deal. Rinus Forkulis, he was originally on SIA. He was a well-known provider over on SIA. Very helpful guy, knew an awful lot about the project, knew an awful lot about the protocol and the coding underneath and so forth. Joined us very early on in terms of as being a community member until at some point we decided, hey, this makes sense to bring this guy aboard in some capacity. He's got a full-time day job, but he does work as our database manager, keeping track of all the stuff, the Grafana, all of the information that's being fed back out in telemetry, all of the stuff having to do with incentives, which are based on telemetry and so forth. What happened is that we had an original piece of code that did all of this information import that was written by another developer that we had at one time back in the day. But what's happened is that Renat, again, has rewritten that thing and essentially provided us a new one. And Renus has to just refactor a little bit around that to essentially turn that into our main blockchain importer. It's not going to be a big task. That one should go away. Relayer core is also another thing that Renaud's done in our unified relayer release. Relayer core is that piece that runs on a command line only. Once you get the relayer up and operational on the UI, then you're probably just going to want to run it on a command line. He's written the CI/CD and the scripts to actually install that very easily using a Docker Compose command. So that's pretty well completed now. The next step that we're working on is an S3 gateway upgrade. Our current S3 gateway for MinIO is okay, but it doesn't have an awful lot of features. It doesn't have identity access management in any great shape. It doesn't have a lot of the metadata tagging that we need. So there's a lot of things that AWS has in the way of additional metadata where you can tag a file with these are the blue tags or these are the green tags, and you can apply those to files so that you can do advanced sorting and so forth. There's a lot more sophistication to the tagging than that. Metadata lifecycling, where essentially a file can live online and be known as a certain, sort of hotness for 30 days and live in a certain area. Like maybe it stays in the cache for 30 days and then it gets uploaded to the network for the rest of its life. That's lifecycling. At 90 days, it might get deleted from the network altogether automatically. That also ties in with versioning. Every time you upload a new file to the network, even if it's a revision to a spreadsheet that's already been uploaded, that's a new version. Just like in Dropbox, you can always go back and see all your old versions. Same thing here. But the way to find it is you have to actually have it tagged in a certain way, and that's in the metadata. So we need a new S3 gateway. Then in the next quarter, we've talked about the Xminer releases. We've talked about the relayer NAS. We've talked about pseudo removals and real removals. Then we get to a couple of interesting things. Active file repairs is something where if ultimately too many providers go down that are holding certain pieces of data, you have to have the ability to pull all the data down, reconstruct it, and then reship it back up to the internet. But because of the way we're actually setting our erasure coding today, it isn't something that's really affecting us. We want to get to a point where ultimately we can get the number of data versus parity down to a really lower number. And then at that point, file repairs will become really important. Metadata backups is another pretty big sprint that we have to accomplish this year. That's on both the Xminers and on the relayers. Right now, you can do them both. Pretty rugged. It's not, an easy process. We need to slick that up. We need to make it more decentralized. And that's what that's all about. We have several relayer upgrades having to do with how many different relayers can talk to the same database. We want to do performance metrics directly from the relayers. And then we have some things we want to do with consensus, moving to maybe a proof of stake or to another L1. And then ultimately the holy grail is compute and block storage. I've actually engaged a developer to potentially go out and do R&D right now on wrapping SPF or rechaining SPF. So he's right now tasked with over the next several weeks trying to figure out what it's going to take and then potentially doing the code work to do it to move SPFs to a chain where you could actually then put them on something like Uniswap. We're talking about a couple of months, not a couple of quarters, but we'll see. That's underway right now. Okay. The other part and process of this whole thing is the back end side, where we have a whole bunch of server assets running right now that keep all this thing sort of going, right? We've got Hasura running some GraphQL layer over top of our databases. We've got our databases running. We've got Postgres running back and pulling in every single block and keeping track of, all of the transactions and identifying who they're going to and so forth. The IDs and the wallet unlock hashes and so forth, keeps track so we can do all of these rebate things and so forth. We've got the Grafana layer that's running back there. And we've got this Keycloak single sign-on layer, which is going to become enormously important over the next several weeks and months and so forth. So that whole thing turns into what ends up being our identity and access management, which allows somebody to show up in the console, sign up for an account as root, then essentially have anybody else in their company sign up and have them be policied sub underneath them. So Keycloak is our SSO that we're currently using right now that runs and ties it. And you'll start to see more things like your Xminer, like the console, like xminer.net, like Spying Storage, that will require and demand a Keycloak login first before you do anything else. And then ultimately all of your assets will be tied together then in console. And ultimately you'll have an experience that's a lot more like AWS. I see that he's actually left. I guess he probably had an appointment or something else to do today. Chris Dalloway is actually CA Kiwi. I guess he's that because at one point he was a New Zealander and now he lives in Canada. But the deal there is that Chris actually is in the process right now of doing a whole bunch of upgrade cycling through those servers and so forth that are going on. He's really helped us out a lot with security and so forth. He also is a consultant, does full-time elsewhere, but working on that sort of stuff for us. Ultimately, when we get into pen testing, he's going to become a huge, enormous sort of asset there. And so we really thank Chris for all the efforts there. Now, let's move on. I'll talk a little bit about Henry. I don't have to do too much here with Henry because you guys see Henry every couple of weeks. Henry came aboard from early SIA days. Essentially what happened there was he knew a lot about SIA and the history of the project and so forth. So he was a very good community kind of guy, started out as a community manager here. Ultimately has taken a role as tech doc kind of guru here, documentation writing and any kind of that sort of stuff. We don't really know where that's going to go, by the way, with whole ChatGPT-4 and stuff that are coming along. But ultimately, he'll probably get into that realm as well. Unfortunately, because of the funding and finances that we've had recently and not being able to get that investment in, ultimately, we've had to essentially tell people to accept lower or no pay for a little while. And Henry's been in that camp. So I look forward to changing that pretty shortly and getting him back into the mode. You can probably tell he hasn't been banging out a lot of articles lately, and that's the reason why. So hopefully that's going to change here. We expect to see some work coming out on this unified relayer very shortly. And of course, he does the community work with the ScPrime meetups. So that's Henry. The last piece, and best for last, I guess we'll say, is our support team. And I've got a couple of things to sort of announce here about our support team, and I'm going to lump our support team in with community management. Extra Bowl Bacon is easy to remember, and he's been a community manager with us from way back, as so has Gord, both from Canada. No, one from Canada, one from Netherlands. And our two community managers you don't really see and hear from very much, and that's actually pretty good because that means that things are humming along. You don't see a lot of spam. You don't see a lot of nonsense in our forum. The last but not least is our support team. First of all, I want to say something pretty quickly about our support process. Going forward, the support for basic licenses is going to deprecate where there won't be formalized live support. Doesn't mean that our three support folks, Tony Harris, Zach Martinez, I think, I said that out of the blue, I hope I got it right, Flux, and then Sparky, which is Mark Rayson, will take some of that support if they get an opportunity or time. But ultimately, basic licenses didn't pay us anything. Once they get their rebates, they'll be free and clear. And ultimately, that's a community supporting thing, and the community will support each other on it. There might be some support on things like Supervisor Lite and so forth. But ultimately, basic licenses will become their own thing. Full licenses and examiners are where our support team will spend all of their time for now. And then ultimately, Sparky's really going to drive hard into the relayer support. You're going to start to see ticketing become a real thing. You're going to start to see in-app support become a real thing. And ultimately, our support people will tend to be focusing their time there as much as they spend and in email as they spend actually in the Discord. The Discord will become more automated across the board. The examiners don't need all that much support, and neither do the full licenses when they're running well. Right now, we have quite a bit of support because we still have a lot of work to do on the examiners themselves, but that's the story. So I think you should be proud of this team. This team has done a job that has really been awesome. There you go. That's our big 2 petabyte event. Now we'll move to a Q&A. Doesn't look like we've really lost anybody yet, so I really appreciate everybody standing here. Q&A. Any questions you have? I guess you can post them in the channel. If you post them in the channel, Henry's going to have to kind of keep an eye Let's see. Shardy B is asked to come up. But wait, but you already did. You already did speak. Well, all right, come on up. How much sales capacity do you have at the moment? Well, the sales capacity is we're focused on developing partners, right? That's our big thing. So we've got several partners that are already groomed and understand and have their pricing. They can sell the whole product list. They can sell extra monitors. They can sell licenses. They can sell storage. They can sell relayers. They can sell the whole 9 yards. And ultimately, they're out there now starting to talk to customers and do demos. And I'll continue to work with them directly on giving them materials and so forth. So they are our primary sales outreach. What we don't have right now is we don't have any brand marketing, and we don't have any ability to get out there and actually do that sort of one-to-one customer, ingressing. That is all, dependent upon how much money we raise over the next, 6 to 12 weeks, and ultimately where we end up. It's really partners for the next 6 months to 12 months, I think, that are going to be the dynamic driving customer onboarding team. And I think by the time we get to the end of this year, we're going to be in perfect shape. We'll be in fine shape. Are we still looking at changing the ASIC to exclude S11s in May? I don't know. It's all driven by whether Bitmain releases this thing called an A7. If they don't release something and if things continue on the path they're on, yeah, we're probably going to continue to look at that.
Hey, Ken, if I can have the floor for a second, I'd love to talk about one of the things that I find the most compelling and interesting about what's going on in our community, and something that I don't think is actually very common in crypto. So you're right that we kind of introduced my role on the team and my background. How I kind of came to be here is that I was a community guy. I was kind of deep in the SIA community. I saw what SCP was doing, and I agreed with a lot of the kind of sentiments and difference in philosophy of kind of targeting enterprise and saying, like, hey, if we're coming up with this new global system for distributed cloud data, why is nobody really focusing on what is some of the most valuable and significant, and what is ultimately composing most of the world's cloud data, which is an enterprise SME, like that kind of tier of data. So that's kind of my background. But what I've seen, and we touched on this with the S3 apps channel and how we're getting like huge community contributions there, people kind of identifying apps that touch on some workflows that they know about, maybe some ones that they don't even, like going out and kind of trailblazing a bit and doing some homework on what S3 apps are out there for different problems. And I think it's awesome to see this kind of community that is developing, of everybody kind of chipping in however they can, moving fast, breaking things, just making a huge amount of progress. And I think we're kind of stumbling upon some really compelling things. So without maybe revealing too much before its time is ready, I've seen a really cool community kind of form of people setting up relayers, buying domains, even figuring out how to get like public certificates for HTTPS. So then they're kind of piecing together themselves how to make it so when you type in your domain in a web browser, it goes to the relayer. People are figuring out how to set up apps, like Nextcloud, OwnCloud, Veeam, all sorts of cool like products and processes that you can totally own and self-run. It's really awesome. And I think one of the most compelling uses, or one of the most exciting uses that I think appeals to a kind of a broad audience, like as soon as you see it in action, you understand the value, is just doing something like that, of going out and getting a $5 domain. Unless you're going for a really mainstream iconic domain, it's not hard to find a cheap domain that is still, not just a string of random letters and numbers or something. So going out and getting a cheap domain, setting up a relayer, the requirements, it's not zero. It's not going to run on a Raspberry Pi, but they're not unreasonable either. Certainly not for 2023. I mean, everything has at least 8 gigs of RAM these days. With just a couple pieces of software, pairing this domain with a relayer, with some of these kind of middleware apps like Nextcloud, OwnCloud, and suddenly you have your own private, secure cloud that you can access and upload from anywhere. If you need to share a link with a friend for whatever reason, like send them a video, send them a picture, some kind of media file, whatever it is, you can link them straight from your cloud. And it looks really cool to have your own domain. I think that you get a lot of clout on the internet for doing that. But it's neat, and it's not that hard to do. And we're really kind of polishing this process. And I think it's awesome. And totally the direction that I think the internet could kind of use right now, of everybody starting to kind of take back control of their data, being in control of your own privacy, being able to not have any denial of service. If there's an outage at Google Cloud or whatever, AWS, there's no interruptions to you because you're kind of running right on your own equipment that's hooking straight into storage providers around either the world, around your continent, around your region. You're in control of all that.
Okay, thanks for that. I'm going to answer some more of these questions. Do you plan to expand your marketing to reach a wider audience? Yes, as soon as we finish up this cap raise, we do expect to dedicate a significant chunk of money to marketing for all kinds of different things. That trade show we did last year is exactly the kind of marketing we need to be doing. We need to be at multiple trade shows. We need to be out with brand marketing, getting articles paid for, editorials, advertorials, those kinds of things. We need case studies. We need all kinds of marketing. Will the geolocation get fixed soon? I don't have an answer to that, to be honest with you. The geolocation is as fixed as I think it's going to get under current amounts that we're willing to spend. I think for it to be fixed anymore would require us to put some sort of RIPID or some sort of geo chip inside every device, miner or so forth, to have a phone home. And I just don't think we're going to do that. But I don't think it's that big of a deal, to be frank. I mean, if you're really way away from where you're supposed to be, you should notify us, and we can look to perhaps physically change that or do something like that. But I don't think the numbers of people that are way off now are all that bad. But we will keep looking at that. And obviously, as things go forward and we get more and more providers onboarded, we'll look to spend more and more money in that direction. And we'll probably look at some other projects and see how they're dealing with it. Because if there's a lot of misrepresentations, it may need to be fixed or changed. I just don't perceive that there is. I mean, I'm not hearing that much about it. Is there incentives for schools or other state government programs? We haven't really yet got to the whole incentive program for partners on top of the actual things that they can do, like subscription revenues ongoing at a discount, the ability to sell the licensing at a discount, the miners at a discount. But I'm about ready to start popping in there now with SPIFs and with sales goals, targeted sales goals. And those will definitely be positioned with SPF incentives or other kinds of incentive layers. And one of those things definitely will be discounting or incentive programs for schools and government, because there's definitely an ability there to pull a lot of data in quickly. But again, that's all going to be tied to the partner programs. SCP University into sales training. There's definitely going to be more programs coming out under SCP University, although most of it's going to be stuff like case studies and stuff that we're working on the initial people that use the network. But there will be a lot of these sorts of training about how to provision a relayer, how to get it out in the field. We're already got a big module coming out about setting up relayer and running it. That will be turned into a university thing. Sooner or later, there will be a cloud certification, just like AWS and the others have. Is Psychotics a team member? No, but he's been a very important, helpful dude, because he is one of these CSP, MSP types who has a lot of consultative work right now with people onboarding storage. And he loves the project. He loves what you can do with it. He loves that you can stand up a relayer and start banging on it really quickly. So not really a team member, but definitely been very team friendly and team helpful. And who knows, maybe we'll become a team member. We'll see. So, thanks a lot, everybody. Really, really appreciate it. And we'll probably see you here in a meetup in about 2 weeks.